People really like movies. I think that's kind of an obvious statement to make, considering that the movie industry is one of the biggest and most durable consumer industries in the entire world. Movies provide us with a chance as humans to escape our reality, to experience adventure and danger without ever actually leaving the comforts of our home or our seat, to feel emotions and imagine ourselves in situations that we would never find ourselves in our everyday lives. They give us lessons to learn and lessons to teach, examples to promote or to warn against, and are one of the best tools we have in our arsenal to educate and prepare our next generation. If we analyze ourselves and the influences that have shaped each of us as people, some of the forces that have had the most effect on our worldview are probably fictional characters from the films we watched as children or young adults. Over the last decade and a half, though, things have changed. Movies have been losing their magic, audiences in theaters have been dwindling, and returns have been plummeting. There have always been poor movies, but it seems like the norm has become sloppy stories, thin or sometimes downright annoying characters, and in many cases, movies have even become a vessel for political messaging or reprimanding for trying to teach the populace. But every once in a while, there's a glimmer, a solid and well-written story that inspires, that removes itself from the politics and the issues of its time, and just concerns itself with telling a great story and entertaining its viewers. Project Hail Mary is one of those stories. Is this the greatest film of all time? No. Is it the best film of this year? It might be, and that's not a good thing. We'll talk more about that later. But what this film is a blast. It is entertaining, it is family friendly, and best of all, its message is healthy and good for adults and for children alike. Keeping it spoiler light, Project Hail Mary takes place in a near future where a particle called astrophage has spread across Earth's area of the galaxy and has begun to eat at our sun, slowly dimming it. If it continues without being stopped, it will eventually cover it completely. The temperatures on Earth, as a result, are in free fall, and while the situation is not complete anarchy yet, the outlook is grim. Ryland Grace, a disgraced former molecular biologist whose writing caused him to be barred from the scientific community and is now teaching middle school science, is called upon to join a worldwide team searching for a solution. After finding no possible solutions to the astrophage problem, Project Hail Mary gets the green light. A trip to a nearby star that appears to not be affected at all by the astrophage. The project is a one-way trip to try and discover why this star resists the astrophage and send the information back to Earth to try and replicate the result. So through some shenanigans and unfortunately timed explosions, Ryland Grace ends up on a spaceship headed light years into space on what basically amounts to a suicide mission to try and find any possible hope for humanity's survival. You might hear that and think, that's kind of dark. But actually, that's one of the things I think this movie does very well. It is a very dark and depressing premise, but at its core, one of the things this story is about is finding hope and what sacrifices you are willing to make to provide hope to other people, even when there may be none for yourself. The dark and oppressive situation is rather deftly counterbalanced with a charming and sometimes even lighthearted tone. And speaking of the tone, Gosling does a brilliant job as the only on-screen human actor for a significant portion of the film. This character isn't anything out of the ordinary for Gosling. A slightly goofy, cowardly, but charming bozo who goes on a journey of self-rediscovery and bravery. It's nothing new, but if it's not broke, don't fix it. The visuals are fantastic. After watching years of CGI getting progressively worse and more generic, you can feel the realness, the physicalness, the care put into the set pieces and the props. One of the major talking points leading up to this movie's release was how much of the visual effects seen on screen were actually practical, including the alien that Gosling spends most of his on-screen time with. They poured hours and hours of practice into making the movements and the expressions of a faceless rock puppet feel like a living creature, and I think they blew it out of the park. As we all know, though, you can't show expression without a face, right, Halo? The amount of sheer color on the screen is a welcome departure from the norm. Very different from the drab and grayscale filter that Hollywood seems so obsessed with these days for some reason. The score is nicely done as well. While you won't be humming the themes on your way out of the movie theater or adding it to your favorite Spotify playlists anytime soon, it does its job and it does it well. This movie isn't without its faults, however. The runtime is quite long, well over 2.5 hours, which is a bit too much for a movie that seems so clearly designed for family viewing. It breezes over some parts of the story rather quickly, like when Grace and Rocky are learning each other's languages, things that I can understand why you would want to speed up when adapting from the book, but that can also feel rushed and sometimes even a bit lazy. There are some really glaring questions left unanswered, like why did the other two astronauts die before Grace woke up? If the astrophage is in fact a water-based life form, as is an important part of the development of Grace's character arc, why is it able to survive on Venus and that close to the sun? Astrophage has already reached light years across our galaxy, but are we going to assume that everything is just going to magically be all right if the rest of the galaxy's stars continue to be consumed and covered? Even if some of these questions have answers in the book, the film itself leaves some of it rather vague. A minute ago, I said that this might be the best film of the year, and that might not be a good thing. The only other blockbuster competitors on the slate for 2026 are Spider-Man, Dune 3, and Avengers Doomsday. Spider-Man, fingers crossed, I expect to be decent and could give Project Hail Mary a run for its money as far as quality goes, but to be honest, I don't know what to expect from Dune. And I don't have much more than a small inkling of hope that Doomsday will be anywhere approaching good, judging from recent Marvel history. All in all, if you're looking for a weekend activity to do with your family or your friends, go watch this movie. It's a surprisingly clean and wholesome film with nothing you won't want your kid to see. Although, if your kid knows why the phrase "fist my bump" is actually funny, maybe you should do a self-check on your parenting skills. Project Hail Mary gets a thumbs down, I guess, from me, and one can only hope that this type of movie becomes commonplace in our theaters again soon.